Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Andy's Murder Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. But just like every other episode, I just want to give a quick warning. We are going to be talking about death and murder and awful acts like that. So, if you don't want to listen to that, turn it off right now. If you have like kids in the car, and you don't want them to listen to that, turn it off right now. But yeah, that's just the little warning before the episode. So, all right, let's get into this week's episode. All right, we're going to jump straight in. This week's episode is about the BTK Killer. We can thank Anthony O'Neill for that suggestion. If you have any suggestions of topics you want covered, let us know on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or through the email. It's andysmurderradio@gmail.com. Same thing with Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. And if you're watching on YouTube, the links will be in the bottom. So today we're going to be talking about Dennis Lynn Rader, better known as BTK Killer. And if you don't know what that means, that stands for bind, torture, and kill. And that's horrible, not to be confused with HBK, the Heartbreak Kid wrestler from the 90s. See. So Dennis was born on March 9th, 1945 in Pittsburgh, Kansas, which is crazy that there's multiple Pittsburghs. And then, but ultimately, he grew up in Wichita, Kansas. His parents were William Elvin Rader and Dorothy May Cook Rader, and he was the oldest of 4 sons. But, he kind of had just a normal childhood, seemed unremarkable to outsiders. His father worked for the Kansas Gas and Electric Company. His mom was a homemaker. And while his upbringing appeared stable, he later described feeling neglected by his parents, especially from his mother. He said he felt she didn't give him enough attention. With 4 kids, that's probably why, But that always left him isolated, and he never really felt comfortable expressing his emotions. From an early age, Rader exhibited troubled behavior. He reported that he had fantasies about control, domination, and torture when he was a child. He also engaged in acts of animal cruelty, such as torturing and killing small animals, which you probably know is a common trait in the background, of serial killers. So I don't know, maybe think about that before you give your kids an animal. I don't know if that would prevent this person, but you never know. I don't know. And if you really think about it, giving a kid an animal is what's going to happen. They're going to be even if the best case scenario, the dog lives 15 years, wonderful. So basically you're telling that kid, hey, in 15 years, your heart is going to shatter. So, I don't know. I'm just kidding. I grew up, my kids have dogs. I love animals. Rader attended Riverview Elementary School and later graduated from Wichita Heights High School in 1963. He was an average student and didn't stand out academically or socially. And after high school, he attended Kansas Wesleyan University, and that was in Salina, but then he dropped out after 1 year. He then joined the U.S. Air Force in 1966. He served for 4 years, primarily stationed in Texas, Alabama, Okinawa, South Korea, Greece, and Turkey. And then after his military service, he returned to Wichita. What? You live in Greece and you're like, oh, I'm going to go back to Wichita? All right, well. He worked a variety of just random jobs. That included the Coleman Company, which manufactured camping equipment, supermarkets. He also later attended Butler Community College in El Dorado, Kansas, and earned an associate's degree in electronics in 1973. I feel like that's really basic. What'd you go to college for? Electronics. What kind? Just generally, just anything electronic. Let me see here. After that, he went on to Wichita State University, where he graduated in 1979 with a bachelor's degree in administration of justice. In 1971, before he graduated, he married Paula Dietz, and they had 2 children. He had a seemingly normal family life. He was a Boy Scout leader, active member of the Christ Lutheran Church, where he was elected president of the church council. But despite this whole facade of normalcy, he was harboring some dark fantasies and began his killing spree in 1974. And we're going to go to that part next. But before we do, I just want to let you know that, I am part of another podcast. It's called Notable Nostalgia. We talk all things 90s and 2000s. It's not dark and heavy like this one. We have fun conversations. So if you want to laugh, go check out Notable Nostalgia. Okay, so I'm just going to give another disclaimer really quick before we get into the next section because it's kind of gross. So just remember, we're about to start talking about some murder and some grossness. So now would be the time to either fast forward to the end or just turn this off right now. So as we talked about before, Dennis was known as the BTK Killer, and then he committed a series of murders between 1974 and 1991 around Kansas. He derived his moniker, the reason it's BTK is because he would bind, torture, and kill his victims. And so here's a detailed description of the known murders that we know of. So the very first murder was January 15th, 1974. They call it the Otero family murders. There's multiple victims. Joseph Otero, who's 38. Joseph Otero, who was 38. Julie Otero, 34. Joseph Otero Jr., who was 9. And Josephine Otero, 11. This one took place in Wichita, Kansas. So basically what Rader did was Rader broke into the home in the morning and he bound and strangled Joseph and Julie Otero first. Then suffocated the son, Joseph Jr. He took their daughter Josephine to the basement where he hung her from a pipe and strangled her. And then Rader left semen at the scene indicating that the murders were sexually motivated. The second one was in 1974, Catherine Bright, 21 years old, also took place in Wichita. So Rader broke into Catherine's home and waited for her to return. When she arrived with her brother Kevin, Rader confronted them with a gun. He forced Kevin to tie up his sister, then took Kevin to another room where he shot him twice in the head. Kevin survived somehow, but Rader returned to Catherine, tied her up, strangled her with rope, and then Catherine died later on from the injuries. And then a few-year break happened, and in 1977, it was Shirley Vian, 24 years old, also in Wichita, Kansas. Rader targeted Shirley Vian after initially planning to attack someone else, he said. He forced his way into her home, where she was with her 3 young children. He locked the children in a bathroom and then bound and strangled Shirley with a rope. The children, luckily, later escaped unharmed, but not unharmed, that mental issue. Yeah. Also the same year, in December 8th, 1977, there's another victim, Nancy Fox, who was 25 years old in Wichita, Kansas. Rader broke into Nancy Fox's home and waited for her to return. He confronted her, bound her hands, and strangled her with a belt. He then masturbated over her body, leaving semen on her nightgown. Rader later called the police to report the murders, which is wild. That's crazy. So now it's like a game, I feel like. I don't know. And now here we have I think the biggest break between the murders. It's 8-year difference. So I wonder why he called the police to report the murders and then took an 8-year hiatus. I don't know, it's weird. So this one was April 27th, 1985, Maureen Hedge. She was 53 years old in Park City, Kansas. Rader abducted Maureen Hedge from her home, where she lived only a few doors down from Rader. He took her to the Christ Lutheran Church, where he had access as a council president. There, he photographed her body in various bondage positions before disposing of her body in a ditch. And then in 1986, just a little bit over a year from the previous one, it was Vicky. What girl? Might be saying that wrong again. Super sorry. So Vicky was 28 years old, and this murder also took place in Wichita, Kansas. Rader posed as a telephone repairman to gain entry into Vicky's home. Once inside, he pulled a gun on her, forced her into a bedroom, and tied her up. He strangled her with nylon stockings and took photographs of her body. Her husband found her later, but she died at the hospital. Now we are officially in the 90s. This murder took place January 19th, 1991. Dolores Davis, 62 years old, in Park City, Kansas. Just like before, Rader broke into Dolores Davis' home through a bedroom window and bound her hands and feet with pantyhose, then strangled her with a belt. He placed her body in the trunk of her car, drove to a remote location, and left the body under a bridge. So Radar's signature involved binding his victims with various materials such as robes, pantyhose, tape, and then torturing them physically and psychologically before ultimately killing them through strangulation or some sort of suffocation. And for the most part, his crimes were sexually motivated. And then he also took souvenirs from his victims' homes, including personal items like driver's licenses, which then he would later use to taunt the police and media. And he also had communication with authorities. He would frequently communicate with the police and media, sending taunting letters and detailed descriptions of his crimes. He sought recognition for his actions and derived pleasure from the media attention. The fear he instilled in the community, I think he liked that too, knowing that everybody was kind of on edge, on their toes. His correspondence often included poems, sketches, cryptic messages, revealing his need for control and just validation, probably from not getting validated as a child. I don't know. I'm just saying. Okay, so those were the murders. Awful, disgusting, horrible acts. And now we're going to go on to post-murder. So one thing that is really concerning with this too is he worked for ADT Security Services from 74 to 88, and he installed security systems in homes and businesses. And if you think about that, he knows how security systems work, so he's not afraid to break into houses. So I don't know. But the job did provide him access to people's homes and knowledge of security measures, which likely aided him in his crimes. The whole time this was happening, Rader maintained a stable family life. He was married to Paula, with whom he had 2 children, like I was talking about earlier, a son and a daughter. He was seen as a devoted family man and involved himself in his children's activities. He was also an active member of the church, like we were talking about. He served as the church council president. He was also a Boy Scout leader. He was just a staple in the community. And so I don't think people would even look twice at him, thinking that he had some kind of crazy, dark alter ego. But for some reason, he started communicating with the authorities 2004, 2005, right around there. In 2004, after a decade of silence, he began sending letters to the media and police again, which reignited the investigation into the killings. He sought recognition and attention, sending detailed accounts of his previous murders and providing clues. Now, this is what happens called the floppy disk mistake. One of the key pieces of evidence that led to his capture was a floppy disk he sent to the media. And so if you're under maybe 29, you probably don't know what a floppy disk is. If you click a save icon, they used to save things on these little square disks on your computer, and it sounds crazy inundated and old now, but that's what we had back then. So so what happened was it was a floppy disk mistake. One of the key pieces of evidence that led to his capture was a floppy disk he sent to the media. He asked if it could be traced, and the police, they told him, no, it couldn't, but I think they were doing that on purpose to try to lure him in. The disk contained metadata that traced back to that Christ Lutheran Church and a document created by Dennis. The crucial mistake linked Rader to the BTK identity. So there was an arrest and ultimately a confession. Rader was arrested on February 25th, 2005. The police collected data from Rader's daughter's medical records, which matched the DNA found at the crime scenes, and that conclusively identified him as the BTK Killer. Following his arrest, Rader provided a detailed confession describing his murders and the methods he used. He confessed to 10 murders, describing each in chilling detail and showing no remorse for his actions. So he did a guilty plea on June 27th, 2005, which is crazy because, like, his last murder was in 1991 when, like, Nirvana was really big. And then in 2005, it was like The Used. So, like, The Used was on the radio when this was happening. I don't know. It just blows my mind. So on June 27, 2005, Rader pleaded, or Rader, I've been saying Rader, I think it's Rader, I don't know. I do like that show MASH, could have got it confused, but so I'm going to switch it to Rader now. Rader pleaded guilty to 10 murders during his court hearings. He provided extensive details about the killing, satisfying his need for control and attention, even in custody. On August 18th, 2005, he was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Kansas had no death penalty at the time of his crimes, so he received the maximum possible sentence. He was initially held in El Dorado Corrections Facility in Kansas. He is serving his life sentence in solitary confinement for his own safety and to prevent him from harming others. Make sense? His daily life in prison is highly controlled. Minimal interactions with other inmates or staff. His access to the outside world is limited. He is allowed limited communication, primarily just with immediate family, and his correspondence is and when he does meet with them, it's very closely monitored. And this case has been just a subject of just countless books, documentaries, television shows, podcasts, anything you can think of. And like I did before, I'll list a few books in the actual description of the episode. And if I can find any documentaries or anything like that, I'll list those too. But one of the reasons I think there has been so much written about him is because the BTK Killer, great name for a murderer, right? I mean, you have your own kind of like when you hear BTK, you know exactly what that is like. But also that he detailed his confessions were so detailed and the horror of his crimes. I think that's really what has kept the public and the media interest. But despite his incarceration, he continues to influence true crime media and discussions about serial killers. But as of right now, Dennis remains incarcerated at El Dorado Correctional Facility, serving his life sentences. He's been subject of study of criminologists and psychologists have studied him. They're trying to kind of seek to understand the mind of a serial killer, but I think there's so much that goes into that. I don't know if there's ever going to be like one for sure mold, like, oh, that's a serial killer. I mean, if your kids are fucking with animals, probably not good. That's a good place to start. But yeah, so that's our episode on the BTK Killer, Anthony O'Neill. Thank you so much for that suggestion. I didn't know that much about this particular person until I started this, and disgusting. So thank you for that. But before we go, I do want to let you know that if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also listen on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get podcasts. And if you're listening on Spotify and you want to see a video of this, you can listen on YouTube. So either way works out. Again, a huge shout out to Night Lizard. Love them. I think they're awesome. The intro song and the outro song is from Night Lizard. The song's called Run. Off their first album, Crazy Machine. Super dope. Go check them out. They're on Spotify, anywhere you listen to music. Night Lizard. And then if you have any suggestions, make sure you let us know. Either through email, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. It's Andy's Murder Radio, and then just add whatever, Facebook or whatever, you'll find it. But if I did anything wrong or got any info wrong, let me know. I don't want to look like a fool more than I already do. So yeah, let me know what I got wrong. If I didn't, that's great. But I'm always ready for, try to improve whatever I can. Don't know where I'm doing this. I'm just kind of going now. I'm just kind of just talking because I don't know how to end this. So I'm just going to end it right now. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, there's going to be a new episode. I wonder what it's going to be on. I guess you're going to have to find out to listen. Cool. All right. Thank you so much.